People are talking about a different type of cloud control. Are aliens using
Looking at this, see that inside this amorphous blob, there seemed to be glowing.
Are we stepping into the last days without even realizing it? When the ground splits open, the sky changes color, and strange objects show up one after another. Is that just nature? Or a warning? In Kenya, a 50-foot deep crack tore right through the roads. In Philadelphia, a weird glowing object zipped past power lines. Los Angeles turned red from smoke. California lit up with a rare aurora. Mexico caught a metallic object hidden in the clouds. Florida had a round ring of light like a gateway. The sun looked suspicious through a lens at 34,000 feet. Texas shared images of winged things. Chicago showed an ice cross. And after a storm, dark metallic clusters poured down to the ground. 10 events stretching from earth to sky, coming one right after the other like a string of signals. Do you think this is just coincidence or a reminder to take a fresh look at our faith? If you believe God is warning us, leave a prayer in the comments below and stick around for the next part. Amen. And now, so you don't have to wait long, let's get right into 1. The earth torn apart, a terrifying split in Kenya. The ground in Kenya suddenly ripped open, spreading wide and swallowing a whole road right in the middle of the day. A huge crack opened up in the Rift Valley, cutting across the Nairobi-Narok highway, stopping traffic and splitting fields in just a moment. About 50 feet deep and nearly 65 feet wide, it opened like the planet's crust had been stretched tight and then torn apart right in front of us. You can imagine how it feels when the ground under your feet isn't steady anymore. This happened in the East African Rift, where the tectonic plates pull apart a few millimeters each year, a slow process that might create a new ocean in millions of years. But when the earth shakes, when the road collapses, and videos capture the land moving like it's breathing, the idea of millions of years suddenly feels very close. Joel chapter 2 verse 10 says, "The earth quakes before him, the heavens tremble, the sun and moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness." Those ancient words echo loudly in this modern scene, like a serious warning. Geologists talk about heavy rain, erosion, and pressure building up underground. They study rock structures, the rate of spreading, and tectonic maps. But this crack didn't just show up randomly somewhere. It sits right on the line where the continent is splitting. Isaiah chapter 24 verse 19 says, "The earth will be broken up. The earth will be split open. The earth will be violently shaken." When you read those words, a picture of the ground cracking apart stops being just scientific data. In Zechariah chapter 14 verse 4, it says, "His feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the Mount of Olives will be split in two, making a very large valley." The image of a mountain divided in half. Opening a huge valley from its highest point makes what's happening in the Rift Valley today feel like more than just normal earth movement. It feels like a warning being repeated through rock and dust. We can call it a natural process that takes millions of years, but the moment the ground tore open only took a few seconds. The split wasn't as loud as a siren, but it was enough to make people stop and look down at their own feet. If this is just one crack, why did it appear right when the world is seeing so many other big changes? The crack in Kenya is still there, slowly getting wider over time. It might just be part of the tectonic cycle, or it could be a sign that the foundations we think are solid are starting to shift. The question still hangs. If the ground keeps pulling apart, will the cities, the roads, and everything we count on as stable stay standing? 2. Mystery cloud cover. Alien being shows up in Philadelphia. It appeared right in the middle of the day, sparkling then ducking out of sight just as the camera caught it. Up in the sky over North Philadelphia, near the corner of 7th and Tioga, a clear shape suddenly showed up. It kept changing form, then moved off like it knew what it was doing. Hector Garcia held up his phone and recorded it. In just a few hours, the video passed 1 million views and sparked a huge wave of arguments. That thing didn't drop or tumble around like trash caught in the wind. It glided along the power lines with a steady path, almost like it was searching for something. Inside the hazy cloud, there were flashing lights, blinking on and off, not like regular sunlight bouncing off. When you look frame by frame, it doesn't feel like you're watching a puff of vapor. It feels more like something alive, deliberately hiding itself. Luke chapter 21 verse 25 says, "There will be strange signs in the sun, moon, and stars. On the earth, nations will be in confusion because of the roaring seas." Those words don't describe the exact shape, but they point to a common feeling: confusion. That same feeling is covering the people who saw this. Nobody is really sure what they just witnessed. Local officials say it was probably just light trash or some reflective material blown up by the wind. But this object changed direction smoothly, stayed at the same height, even shrank and stretched out before disappearing behind a rooftop. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 4 records, "I looked, and there was a stormy wind coming from the north, a large cloud, fire flashing non-stop, brightness all around, and in the middle of the fire, something like gleaming metal." The picture of a cloud holding light inside makes a lot of people think there's a real connection here. Similar sightings have been reported in other states too, with almost the same description: clear shape, inner lights, purposeful movement. No drone reports, no civilian flying device has claimed it. Revelation chapter 12 verse 3 says, "Then another sign appeared in heaven, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns on its heads." That's symbolic language. But the phrase "another sign appeared in heaven" rings like a key to what's happening now. If this is just some weather thing, why does it show up with a stable structure and light coming from inside? If it's just a lifeless object, why does it change shape right before it leaves view? Those questions still have no official answer, and the gap in explanation keeps growing. Signs in the sky aren't rare anymore. When a cloud moves like it's watching us, the line between natural and supernatural starts to blur. And if those things up there really are keeping an eye on us, one last question hangs in the air. Is this just a one-off appearance, or the beginning of something much bigger on the way? 3. Doomsday Dawn. Fiery sky over Los Angeles. That morning, the whole western horizon looked like it was on fire. Deep red spread across every tall building and reflected off the windows like flames rising right in the middle of the city. Have you ever stood in front of a sunrise and felt your heart sink with a bad feeling? It wasn't some poetic moment for taking pictures anymore. That sky left a lot of people speechless with fear. Downtown Los Angeles, smoke from the wildfires drifted in from dozens of miles away. It mixed with the low clouds and formed a dark red dome like glowing coals. Those swirling bands of color up high were breathtakingly beautiful, and at the same time, they felt like something serious was being announced. Plenty of folks stopped on the sidewalk and just stared up in silence. Joel chapter 2 verse 31 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes." Those ancient words rang out like an indictment hanging over that blazing red sky. When the morning light turned from soft to the color of blood, it didn't feel like a coincidence anymore. Thick red streaks mixed with black smoke, creating vivid layers like an oil painting, but heavier, more unusual than normal. Some people said it was just an optical effect, dust and pollution building up in the air. Still, the brightness and the deepness of the color that morning went way beyond anything locals had seen for years. Acts chapter 2 verse 20 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and glorious day of the Lord." End quote. When 2 witnesses, centuries apart, both talk about a sky changing color, we can't just ignore it. The Bible doesn't only describe what happens, it points to the meaning behind it. The authorities reassured everyone that it all came from wildfires and bad weather conditions. Meteorologists explained about dust particles and humidity, trying to fit it into the usual scientific box. But the unease in people's hearts couldn't be measured with instruments. That feeling was more like a warning than just a natural accident. Matthew chapter 24 verse 29 says, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." That's not comfort. It's a charge against a generation so sure of its own power. When the sky changes its face, it's like the indictment has been read aloud. That blood-red dawn wasn't just a stunning picture for social media. It was like a wake-up bell ringing through the busy streets, reminding us that judgment isn't some far-off story. If daylight can turn the color of blood in just a few minutes, what's waiting when true darkness finally falls? Was this just one strange morning, or the opening sign of even rougher days ahead? Are you ready if the sky changes color again, and this time there's no familiar excuse left to explain it away? 4. Strange lights in California. Aurora that shouldn't happen. That night, the California sky wasn't its usual dark velvet anymore. It suddenly lit up, swirling with bands of color so captivating they seemed to come from another world. What would you think if you were standing on the Pacific coast and saw lights dancing right overhead? Not in Alaska, not near the poles, but in a place where auroras are almost never seen. Along more than 800 miles of coastline, from Northern California all the way down to Southern California, people stepped outside when word spread about those strange moving lights. Astronomers talked about a powerful solar storm, but what everyone saw went way beyond a science report. Green, purple, and pink lights shimmered like they were painted by hand, twisting into living arches. At times, the bands moved in clear patterns, then suddenly changed direction, leaving the crowd silent, stunned, and puzzled at the same time. Phones went up, whispers spread faster than the waves, but deep down many felt they were witnessing something bigger than just pretty lights. Isaiah chapter 13 verse 10 says, "For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be dark when it rises, and the moon will not shed its light." Those old words felt like a hint that changes up there aren't random. When familiar lights twist and change, it wakes up faith in searching hearts. Experts explained it as a rare atmospheric event caused by an unusually strong solar storm, part of the sun's activity ramping up in its cycle. But what got people thinking was how often these strange sky events are happening lately. This wasn't just one-off anymore. It felt like a series of signs following one after another. Revelation chapter 6 verse 12 says, "The sun became black as sackcloth, the moon became red like blood." When strange colors poured down from space, those words didn't feel so far away. It seemed like a reminder that the universe can shake in ways we can't control. Amid all the talk and analysis, the lights kept swirling, drawing shapes across the sky that were hard to name. Some said it was just weather, but the sacred feeling in that moment whispered something else. When people look up and feel small, that's often when faith gets a chance to grow. Luke chapter 21 verse 11 says, "There will be great signs from heaven." That short statement feels more like an invitation than a final word. If these lights really are signs, they're not just for us to admire, they're calling us to think deeper. Eventually, those glowing bands faded away, leaving the night sky quiet as if nothing had happened. But the question still hangs there. Could this be an invitation from on high, urging people to look up and get ready for bigger changes coming closer? 5. Mysterious metal object in Guadalajara, Mexico. It peeks out, glints, then disappears behind thick clouds. On the Periférico Highway in Guadalajara, a driver suddenly slows down when he spots a round metal object hanging in the sky. No engine noise, no propellers, just a shiny block reflecting sunlight like polished steel. The video shows it moving slowly, holding a steady height, appearing and vanishing behind the gray clouds. It doesn't zoom off like a plane, doesn't wobble like a drone. It glides with purpose, almost like it's watching what's below. If you were behind the wheel right then, would you keep driving? Or pull over to get a better look? This area isn't far from places where people have reported metallic orbs near Pico de Orizaba. The similarity has a lot of folks asking, is this some kind of test technology or something beyond what we currently understand? No statement from aviation authorities, no official news, just a spreading video and a long silence. Daniel chapter 7 verse 13 says, I saw in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven. The picture of coming with the clouds doesn't feel so far away anymore when a real metal object hides in the clouds and shows up right in front of regular people on the road. That old verse feels like a key to seeing what's happening today in a different way. Some say it's just a drone or a weather balloon catching the light. But no drone reports match this height and movement, and the perfect round shape makes the balloon idea pretty weak. The object keeps its distance. It doesn't come close, doesn't race away too fast, like it controls every inch of its path. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 16 describes, the appearance of the wheels was like the gleaming of beryl. Their appearance and workmanship were like a wheel within a wheel. That image of round, shining, complicated structures makes many people think of machines that don't belong to ancient times. Could those old visions be mirroring what people today are catching on camera? Revelation chapter 1 verse 7 declares, behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him. That statement isn't just a promise, it's also confirmation that the appearing won't be quiet. When a striking object shows up in the daytime clouds and draws the eyes of thousands watching online, the words, every eye will see, really make you stop and think. This isn't just another viral story for fun on social media anymore. A metal object appears, moves with control, then slips back into the clouds without any official explanation. If it's a sign of the Son of Man coming with the clouds, then it's not only an image, it's a warning. And the final question still hangs there. Did that object just pass by chance, or is it watching, waiting for the right moment to show itself again? 6. Florida Sky Circle, a heavenly gate suggestion. A perfect ring of light hung in the sky over Tampa Bay. It appeared, then slowly faded away, with no clear explanation. It didn't flash like lightning or spread like clouds. Instead, it framed the sky like a round silver gate. Cars slowed down, people looked up, and for that moment, everything went quiet. A group of young people filmed it when the circle was at its brightest. The edge was sharp and even, like someone drew it with a compass. No sparks, no boom, just a perfectly balanced ring of light that was hard to believe. If you stood right under it, would you call it an atmospheric thing or a sign placed exactly where it needed to be? Weather experts say it might have been a 22-degree sun halo caused by sunlight bending through ice crystals high up. That explanation makes sense, but the feeling it left behind didn't stop at science. The ring didn't just reflect sunlight, it gave the impression of a boundary between two worlds, as if the sky had quietly opened to show something hidden. Genesis chapter 9 verse 13 says, I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. A sign in the clouds isn't new in the Bible. When a complete ring of light appears in the sky, it brings back that image of a covenant, not with words, but with light itself. The sight lasted just a few minutes before it faded, leaving no smoke trail or weird clouds behind. No one could touch it, and no one could fully explain why it showed up at that exact time. Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 28 describes, like the appearance of a rainbow in the clouds on a rainy day, so was the radiance around him. That image of a glowing ring around a presence makes many people think of glory beyond the physical world. Revelation chapter 4 verse 3 says, "A rainbow that shone like an emerald encircled the throne." The ring wasn't just a light effect, it stood as a symbol of power and promise. As that circle floated in the Florida sky, it reminded people that the covenant is still real, but a covenant always comes with responsibility. Some call it an atmospheric oddity, a rare weather event, but the perfect shape of the circle and the deep feeling it stirred made many think bigger. The light didn't threaten or destroy. It invited quiet thought. This circle might be a reminder of mercy, but it could also be a signal that history is moving toward a set meeting point. When the light closed up and the sky went back to normal, one question still hung there. Was it only refracted light, or was a door slowly opening to something much bigger? 7. NASA exposed. Sun rising from clouds shakes up science. The sun doesn't rise from the horizon. It pops up right out of the clouds at around 34,000 feet. A passenger on a flight from Atlanta to Toronto pulled out a Nikon P900 and caught the moment on video. The clip spread fast across social media. That image puts a big question mark on the 93 million miles figure science has always told us. In the slightly shaky frame from the plane, the red-orange glow doesn't show up at some far-off curved edge. It slowly appears right in the middle of thick clouds. No clear horizon line, no endless hazy distance, just sudden light breaking through and hitting the lens straight on. Lots of people watched it over and over and started doubting what they'd been taught. The video went viral with claims that NASA is hiding the truth, that the sun might be a lot closer than we think. The official explanation calls it an optical illusion caused by the viewing angle and light bending in the upper atmosphere. But when the picture doesn't match what we're used to imagining, the doubts just keep growing. Job chapter 26 verse 7 says, "He hangs the earth on nothing and suspends it over empty space." That picture describes an earth with no visible foundation, hanging in the middle of nothing by a power far beyond us. If we haven't fully figured out that structure yet, are all our current models really the final answer? Isaiah chapter 40 verse 22 says, "He sits above the circle of the earth, and its people are like grasshoppers." The phrase "circle of the earth" has been debated for a long time about the shape and workings of the world. When the sun shows up from the clouds instead of a distant edge, lots of folks bring up this Bible verse as a key to seeing things differently. Psalm chapter 19 verse 1 declares, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands." The sky isn't just empty space. It's a living statement about power and design. Even if this phenomenon gets explained by optics, it still forces people to face the limits of what we really understand. NASA says it's just a light effect at high altitude, where the curve of the Earth and cloud layers create an illusion. That argument has solid physics behind it, but the video keeps getting shared as proof of something else entirely. When science and what we feel clash, the question of truth gets harder to ignore. This doesn't have to flip every model upside down, but it does remind us that human science keeps changing and growing, while the one who built the universe is still in control. If the sun can look closer from a different angle, maybe that shows the universe is bigger than we picture, and the truth runs deeper than any temporary claim. 8. Winged figure, strange creature in Texas. A winged shape hovers in the Texas night, gliding along power lines before flashing bright and vanishing. A TikTok video captured the moment in the Loch area, amid strong winds and deep darkness. When you slow down the clip frame by frame, that uneasy feeling doesn't go away easily. The figure appears out of nowhere, wings spread wide like it's balancing in midair. It doesn't flap constantly like a bird, and it makes no engine noise like a drone. Light flashes around its blurry body, almost as if it's pulling energy from the power lines below. Many folks say it's just something caught by the wind or a trick of the light, but the purposeful movement, the exact pause on the wire and the instant disappearance after a bright flash raise more questions. Earlier reports of hovering objects in San Antonio with spinning metal parts only make the picture more complicated. Isaiah chapter 6 verse 2 says, "Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces. With 2 they covered their feet. And with 2 they were flying." Winged beings aren't strange in the Bible, where holy creatures appear between heaven and earth. When a winged shadow hovers in the Texas night, many people quickly connect it to those ancient descriptions. Ezekiel chapter 10 verse 1 records, "Then I looked, and above the vault, over the heads of the cherubim, something like a sapphire throne appeared." Visions of supernatural beings often come with light and power. The flashing glow around the blurry shape in the video makes viewers wonder if it's just an electric field or a presence beyond the physical. Revelation chapter 4 verse 6 says, "Also in front of the throne there was what looked like a sea of glass, clear as crystal. In the center, around the throne, were 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and in back. These creatures don't resemble any ordinary animal. They appear as messengers at key moments. When a winged figure shows up and vanishes without a trace, those Bible passages suddenly feel very alive. It could be a light illusion in strong wind, or maybe an unidentified object. But if holy beings were once described as appearing in the sky to deliver messages, then this can't simply be dismissed as a weather prank. It serves as a reminder that the visible world isn't the whole story. That winged figure might be a sign of protection, or it could be a reminder that a spiritual battle is underway. If those shapes keep appearing in the sky, we have to ask, are they messengers bringing word from above, or a clever disguise testing our faith? 9. The Chicago Cross, a bright symbol made of ice. A glowing cross lights up in the Chicago winter sky, with 4 beams of light crossing perfectly inside a ring of ice. Skiers stop on the frozen lake, holding their phones high to capture that rare moment. If you were standing there in that cold wind, would you call it a coincidence or a sign? The ring of light around the sun is a 2-degree halo caused by ice crystals bending the sunlight. Weather experts call those bright spots sundogs, but this time 4 long beams stretch clearly horizontal and vertical, crossing to form a perfect, balanced cross. The same thing happened again the next winter, almost in the same spot above the city. The light reflects off the white snow, making the symbol stand out even more. It's not a random cloud streak or the shadow of a tall building. It's a clear, optical pattern. People who saw it whispered to each other, not about the weather, but about what it might mean. Matthew chapter 24, verse 30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn." When a symbol tied to faith shows up in the heavens, that Bible verse rings like a quiet warning. Signs in the sky aren't just for looking at, they're for reminding us. Galatians chapter 6 verse 14 says, "But as for me, may I never boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ." The cross used to be an instrument of execution, but it became the symbol of salvation. When light forms a cross in the sky, it asks us how we feel about that sacrifice. Revelation chapter 21 verse 23 says, "The city does not need the sun or the moon to shine on it, for the glory of God gives it light." True light doesn't depend on the sun or moon. It comes from God's glory. The Chicago halo, even though science explains it, still brings to mind a light that goes beyond nature. Some people say it's just light refracting through ice crystals, something that can be predicted. That's true scientifically, but the repeated cross shape and how it matches the symbol makes many people think deeper. Science tells us how the light passes through ice, but it doesn't explain why the symbol touches the heart. The cross in the sky doesn't threaten, It calls. It doesn't force anyone, but it puts people at a choice. Ignore it or think about it. If the sign of the Son of Man is truly promised to appear in the sky, then every halo shaped like a cross is a reminder that time isn't endless. This event may only last a few minutes in the Chicago cold, but its meaning can stay much longer in the minds of those who saw it. If it's a quiet warning about faith that's fading, will we listen before the next signs become clearer? 10. Metal rain. Strange black clumps after the storm. After the last howling gust died down, a man stepped out onto the still-soaked street and froze when he saw the road covered with shiny black clumps. They weren't just sitting there. They shrank, split apart, then came back together like they were breathing. What would you do if something like that showed up right in front of your house? Tiny pieces the size of a fingertip crawled slowly across the asphalt, sticking together into bigger clumps, then breaking apart again. The streetlights shone down, and their surfaces glinted like wet iron. No one heard any sound, just saw them slide along inch by inch through the rainwater. Some folks filmed it, others slammed their doors shut. No exact place named, just a quiet suburb after the storm. Joel chapter 2 verse 2 says, "A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like dawn spreading over the mountains." The picture of black clouds wasn't just up in the sky anymore. It felt like they'd come down to the ground. Those black clumps stretched along the street like a curtain. The question isn't what they are anymore, it's what they're warning about. Some people watching this talk about leftovers from solar storms, metal dust pulled down by the magnetic field, or strange moisture patterns forming solid shapes. The ideas sound neat and tidy, but these clumps move in an orderly way, gathering, then separating, like something invisible is guiding them. They bring to mind old stories about iron ash falling on ancient cities, covering roofs and fields. Amos chapter 4 verse 13 says, "He who forms the mountains and creates the wind, who reveals his thoughts to mankind, who turns darkness into morning and treads on the high places of the earth." The wind built the storm. After the wind came this thick black stuff left behind. If every part of nature is in the Creator's hand, then this can't just be brushed off as some random accident. Skeptics say it's only pollution, industrial bits, or dead algae clumped up. Maybe. But the way they move almost like they're alive, and how they all act together after geomagnetic disturbances, makes that explanation feel pretty thin. Science gives the how. The Bible gives the why. Revelation chapter 16 verse 21 says, "Great hailstones fell from the sky on people, each weighing about a talent." A talent is around 75 pounds. End quote. If hail was once a mark of wrath, then these small metal clumps today might be an early sketch of something much bigger. Light first, heavy later. Warning first, judgment later. When the ground is still wet from the storm and the road is sparkling with metal, it's not just a weird sight. It might be the final reminder that time isn't on our side. If these black clumps spread farther, if they join into something much larger, the world will change in ways no one can control. And when that happens, are you ready? 10 signs have passed right in front of us. From bright streaks tearing across the sky, strange sounds ringing in the middle of the night, to a glowing cross in the freezing cold and dark clusters after storms. Each one alone can be explained away. But when you put them side by side, they form one steady line of warnings. Not loud, not random, but coming one after another, like steady bell strikes, hitting the human conscience. When we look at everything in the light of Scripture, fear doesn't have to be the end. It becomes the starting point of faith. Because if there are warnings, there's also a way out. If there are signs, there's also the one who holds authority over every single sign. Matthew chapter 24 verse 42 says, "Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming." This isn't a threat, it's a wake-up call. Staying awake doesn't just mean keeping your eyes open for strange things. It means opening your heart to God's Word. When the world shakes, what keeps us steady isn't knowledge, it's faith in the right place. These 10 signs aren't meant to push us into despair. They remind us time isn't endless. They call us to come back, to read the Bible again page by page, to think about every promise, and to get on our knees in prayer. From that first fear, we can step into solid hope, because the one who judges is also the one who saves. If what's been shared here touches your heart, leave a short prayer in the comments, or just write your honest thoughts. The prayer doesn't need to be long, just real. Who knows? The words you write today might quietly lift up someone else who's been worrying alone. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next message. Not to follow one person, but so we can keep the fire of being awake burning together in these times. Every share can carry this reminder to one more family. Thank you for staying with me to the end. I pray the Lord keeps you and your family safe and peaceful, protected through every shaking, and guided in the truth every day. May grace and mercy be with you. Amen.
Are you recording this? What's going on?
Are we living in the last days the Bible warned about? If one morning you look up and the sky doesn't feel peaceful anymore like it used to, what would you do? Early in 2026, a whole series of powerful events broke out all over the world, tearing through the night, shaking up social media, and spreading a deep sense of unease like an unstoppable underground wave. A bright green beam standing straight up in the sky, a giant face rising out of storm clouds, streaks of fire shooting down like they were aimed, glowing orbs hanging silently, the sky flickering as if reality itself is cracking, fiery rings floating in the air, dark shadows moving through thunderstorms, streaks of light being chased at dawn. All of it came one after another, covering the whole planet with images that make people stop and wonder about what's coming next. Is this just coincidence, or is it the clearest warning we've ever gotten? Is time moving faster than we think? If you feel the urgency in every one of these signs, leave a prayer in the comments as your way of standing up for your faith. And get ready to face each event as it comes, because what's waiting ahead is going to show you that humanity is closer to the final days than ever before. And now, so you don't have to wait any longer, let's get right into it. 1. A mysterious beam cuts across the sky. A tall green column of light stands straight up in the night sky, ripping through the darkness and sweeping down over every rooftop like a huge blade slicing the heavens. The whole city wakes up in seconds. Phones light up, car horns go off, social media blows up with hundreds of videos of the same scene. Right then, we realize the sky we thought we knew doesn't feel like ours anymore. It first appeared in Arizona, then moved to Texas, lighting up an area about 1 to 2 square miles, with no thunder, no lightning, no engine sound at all. The beam just hung there, eerily still, no flashing, no wobbling, like an invisible hand was holding it steady in the air. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth, nations will be in anguish and perplexity." Those old words suddenly sound loud amid all the modern chaos. Witnesses described it as eerily still, the light thick and strong, cutting through the clouds and clearly showing every street below. No statement from the FAA, no scheduled military drill, no official explanation that could calm everyone down. Matthew 24:29 says, "The sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken." As that light just floated there, without moving, that shaking feeling seemed to have already started. Some folks quickly blamed it on a drone or big spotlights. Others talked about tech that can mess with the sky. But videos from different angles show no real source, no moving parts, just a pillar of light hanging quietly before it suddenly disappeared, like it never existed. Revelation 6:12 says, "When the Lamb opened the sixth seal, the sun turned black like sackcloth. The whole moon became red as blood." Pictures of the heavens changing have never been unusual in the Bible. That beam wasn't just something to look at. It felt like a wake-up call, a reminder that our normal world can fall apart in a flash. When the sky starts acting strange, everything we rely on begins to feel shaky. If this was the first warning, it came through very clear in the middle of the night. And if that green pillar was only the start, what happens when the sky stops staying quiet? Are we seeing the opening chapter of something much bigger coming, or a last call to wake up before the final door shuts? 2. A strange face in the clouds. Right in the middle of a thick gray storm over Grand Falls, New Brunswick, a giant face suddenly appeared in the swirling clouds. The features were so clear, eyes, nose, and lips, that people froze for a few seconds, just staring. The video spread like wildfire, racking up millions of views in no time. All of a sudden, this quiet little town became the center of a question nobody wanted to say out loud. Is something up there, looking down at us? The storm clouds moved fast with the wind, rolling and breaking apart, but that face held its shape almost perfectly for a few minutes before it finally faded. The angle of the face gave it real depth. The forehead, eye sockets, and chin stood out like they'd been carved into a huge block of vapor. When you watch the video again, it's hard to shake the feeling that the sky is looking right back at you. Meteorologists quickly pointed to pareidolia, the way our brains see familiar shapes in random things like clouds or rocks. They talked about air pressure, convection currents, and how light and shadows just happened to line up. But they couldn't really explain why the shape stayed so steady in all that wild movement around it. Science gives one way to look at it, but it still leaves some big questions unanswered. Meanwhile, the Bible has long talked about signs appearing in the clouds, signs we shouldn't take lightly. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke." Seeing a huge face rise up in thick clouds makes a lot of people think of a message that goes beyond just weather. Matthew 24:30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." Where science sees random atmospheric chance, the Bible sees a bigger picture, where signs in the sky aren't just physical, but carry a spiritual meaning too. Revelation 1-7 adds, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." Here, the clouds aren't just background, they're part of the revelation. Compared to the careful, open-ended explanations from experts, the Bible's view gives a clear thread of meaning that runs from the past right up to today, tying the event to a much larger plan. That face in the clouds may have disappeared after just a few minutes, but the impression it left isn't fading anytime soon. If it's a sign from someone watching and reminding us, the next appearance won't be some vague shape in the sky, it'll be much clearer. And then, no one will be able to say they weren't warned. 3. Controlled descent. Up in the Colorado sky, near the Rocky Mountains, bright, fiery streaks suddenly dropped from high up. They lined up like a controlled formation, not falling freely, but gliding down smoothly, almost like an invisible hand was guiding them. Pilot Wyatt Harmon caught the whole thing on video from thousands of feet up. Within just a few hours, the clip blew up online with people panicking and shouting, "This is the end of the world!" If you were standing under that sky, could you really stay calm and call it just a coincidence? Those glowing streaks didn't come crashing down like a meteor. They moved slowly, almost in perfect sync, keeping steady distance from each other. The light flared up, then faded, all at the same rhythm. No sonic booms, no wild trailing smoke. NBC News and the Today Show mentioned it could be a drone swarm or space debris, but NASA never put out any official report about meteors falling in that area. When you look closely, they weren't scattering randomly. They were lined up, orderly, and then just disappeared, like they'd finished a planned path. Luke 21:11 says, "There will be great signs from heaven, and great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences." When you read that, you can't ignore the words, "great signs from heaven." Those fiery streaks showed up out of nowhere and moved like they were under control. It makes you wonder, could this be one of those signs we were warned about, in a time when people think they've figured out everything about our atmosphere and space? Joel 2:31 says, "The sun will be turned to darkness, and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes." Believers see events like this as warnings coming one after another. People without faith just call it a rare natural phenomenon. One side trembles and prays. The other side looks for a technical explanation. But that divide doesn't change the fact that those lights appeared, got recorded, and left thousands of people speechless. Experts say it wasn't drones. No engine noise was picked up. It wasn't meteors either. The speed was way too slow, and the path too even. They rule out anything supernatural, but they don't give a clear answer either. In that gap, a lot of folks think back to Revelation 8 and 5. The angel took the censer, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth, and there were peals of thunder. One, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. The picture of fire coming down from heaven doesn't feel so far away anymore when you've actually seen those streaks descending over the Rockies. When signs in the sky keep coming one after another, they're not just there for entertainment. If this is preparation for something bigger, then we're standing at the edge of a moment we can't turn back from. What are those glowing streaks guiding down to earth? Or are they themselves the messengers, clearing the way for a time humanity isn't ready to face? 4. Glowing sky sphere. A huge glowing sphere suddenly floated slowly across the sky in Hebei, China. It made no sound at all. Hundreds of people rushed out into the streets, looking up and pulling out their phones to record it. The light didn't flash like an airplane or blink like a drone. It just glowed steadily, cold, calm, and even in the middle of the night, over an industrial province used to smoke, dust, and factory lights. Within just a few hours, the videos spread like wildfire, raising the big question, is this a UFO or some kind of sign we shouldn't ignore? According to News Flare and Sixth Tone, this looks a lot like earlier reports from Beijing, but this time the size and clarity were way beyond anything seen before. The sphere moved slowly, at what looked like several hundred feet up, drifting quietly over the city as if it had a set path. No engine noise, no jet of air, no aircraft signals. Down on the ground, its light bounced off tall buildings and glass windows, creating a strange glow that left many people just standing there, stunned. Ezekiel 1-4 describes something haunting. "I looked, and behold, a stormy wind came out of the north, a great cloud with flashing fire and brightness all around it. And in the middle of the fire, something like glowing metal." End quote. That brightness in the middle of the fire makes people think right away of this glowing sphere coming from the north and gliding silently through the sky. Could these visions recorded thousands of years ago be happening again in a way modern people can only film but not fully explain? Experts suggest it might be an atmospheric illusion or a rare light reflection. Still, videos from different angles show a clear, round shape moving steadily, almost against the wind at that height. It wasn't a drone, no propellers or signal lights. It wasn't a balloon. Wind didn't push it off course. The complete silence only made the mystery deeper. Revelation 12:7 says, "There was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon." When the Bible talks about battles in the sky, it points to a reality beyond what our eyes usually see, a place where angels move in spaces we only catch a glimpse of. Could that glowing sphere be a trace of something invisible moving, an event our physical world only reflects in a small way? Luke 2:9 also reminds us, "An angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were terrified." The fear that swept over Hebe that night didn't come from explosions or crashes. It came from a pure, quiet light that was overwhelming. When glory shines like that, people's first reaction is always shock and fear. The footage doesn't show any destruction, but it doesn't bring comfort either. The sphere came, then left, without any official explanation. If this really was a messenger sent here, its message is still waiting to be understood. What was that sphere looking for on Earth? And if that light ever comes back one night, will humanity be ready to grasp what it truly means? 5. Strange light from the top of the pyramids. 4 bright orbs suddenly shot up from behind the pyramids in Giza. They flew straight into the night sky and formed the shape of huge eyes, like they were watching every move humanity makes. It happened so fast and so clear that tourists and locals nearby froze for a few seconds before they could grab their phones to record it. If you saw those eyes open up in the ancient sky with your own eyes, could you really stay calm? It took place near the famous pyramid complex, a place that draws millions of visitors every year. Some folks said it was just part of the usual light show at Giza, but the timing wasn't on the announced schedule, and the orbs moved freely above the old stone tops, hundreds of feet off the ground. Videos spreading on YouTube show them rising together, hovering in mid-air, then lining up perfectly into 2 bright arcs that looked exactly like a pair of open eyes. Matthew 24:3 records the disciples' question. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. "Tell us," they said, "when will this happen, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" That question came 2,000 years ago, and it still feels very relevant today. When signs show up in the sky, people start wondering, could this be the answer to what they asked back then? The 4 glowing orbs stayed steady. Their light bounced off the limestone of the pyramids, creating 2 big bright spots like pupils looking down on the desert. They held position for a few minutes, then slowly faded and vanished into the night. Some people who were right there said they felt a shiver run down their spine, like they were standing in front of something bigger than human history. Joel 3:15 says, "The sun and moon will be darkened, and the stars no longer shine." When both man-made lights and natural lights start acting strange, the Bible sees it as a signal in a chain of big events. Those floating orbs appearing right over the ancient structures tied to power and old myths make many people think about the past meeting the last days. Skeptics call it CGI trickery or drones flying in formation, but videos from different angles show smooth paths and real light reflections on the stone. Experts haven't given a solid explanation yet, while eyewitnesses swear the scene happened right in front of them. Revelation 16:18 says, "Then there came flashes of lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, and a severe earthquake." No earthquake like it has ever occurred since mankind has been on Earth. That verse feels like a warning to a generation seeing one strange sign after another and still holding back. When those glowing eyes appeared in the Giza sky, it was like a reminder that every action is being recorded. Those eyes closed in the desert night, but the question stays open. If that was a gaze from above, what is humanity being watched for? And when that light appears again, will there still be time to turn away from the things being exposed under that gaze? 6. Jesus appears publicly in the sky. Against a heavy gray sky after the storm, a huge figure suddenly appeared, so clear that people in their cars had to slam on the brakes to grab their phones and record it. The figure had long hair, arms raised high like he was giving a blessing, standing out against the darkening clouds. The video was only a few seconds long, but it shook millions of hearts as it spread all over social media. The same kind of thing was seen in the Philippines after an outdoor church service and in Alabama, USA, right after a storm cleared. Thick clouds came together into sharp lines, forming a head, shoulders, and arms like a living statue hundreds of feet tall in the sky. People who saw it said they got chills watching that figure stand quietly above the highway, then slowly fade away as the clouds moved on. Matthew 24-30 says, "Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory." When this figure showed up in the dark clouds, that verse felt like it was happening right in front of us today. Signs in the sky have always been talked about in prophecies for a very special time in history. Some folks who study images say it might just be light and clouds playing tricks, something called pareidolia, where our brains see faces in things. But the shape was too balanced, the raised arm too clear, and it stayed long enough for different people to catch it from other angles. Those who were there said it wasn't just surprise, they felt something holy touch them. Revelation 1-7 says, "Look, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him." Those words aren't about something quiet. They describe a big, open moment when everyone looks up. If it was only clouds, why did it stir such deep awe in people's hearts? Luke 21:27 says, "Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory." 3 Bible passages, the same picture, the Son of Man in the clouds. When you put those old words next to a video taken from a car on the highway, it lines up in a way that's almost hard to believe. Some call it a quick illusion, but the effect wasn't quick at all. Thousands of comments came in. Many said it was a wake-up call to come back to faith. Others weren't so sure. No matter how you explain it, that moment turned a normal sky into something that made people ask the biggest questions about hope and being ready. If that figure really is a sign the Savior is coming close, what will the next chapter of history mean? When the clouds form a shape in the sky again one day, will it be the light of salvation breaking through? Or the moment everyone has to face what they've heard about but maybe weren't ready for? 7. The sky was flickering in a strange way. The Indiana sky suddenly started flashing like a huge broken screen. Lights blinked on and off in a split second, leaving the whole neighborhood stunned. The colors shifted from white blue to pale purple, then went pitch black, so fast that a lot of folks didn't even catch what was happening. That moment came and went like a glitch in reality, leaving a heavy, uneasy feeling in the air. It happened near suburban neighborhoods and got caught on tons of security cameras and cell phones. The whole sky seemed to shake with steady flashes, not just in one spot, but spreading miles across the sky. When the lights finally quit, a deep silence settled over everything. You could probably feel that quiet if you'd been standing under that glitchy sky. Plenty of people on Reddit and local channels figure it was power flashes from a transformer or maybe some rare weather thing in the atmosphere. But the light covered the entire sky instead of coming up from the ground, and there weren't reports of big power outages to go with it. Some folks talked about meteors or plasma high up, but experts say they still don't have a solid answer for all of it. Joel 2:10 says, "The earth shakes before them, the heavens tremble, the sun and moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness." A trembling sky with lights going out doesn't feel like old words anymore when you see the video of the sky flashing, then turning dark. That warning about things shaking up high seems to be playing out in a way that really grabs our generation. Matthew 24-29 goes on, "The sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky. When strange lights high up flash and fade out, the sense that our normal world is being shaken hits harder than ever. Science-minded people call it a natural glitch. Believers see a divine sign that heaven and earth can change in an instant. Revelation 6:13 describes, "The stars in the sky fell to the earth, like figs dropping from a fig tree shaken by a strong wind." No stars actually fell in Indiana, but the idea of an unsteady sky has been around forever. When the lights flicker like the universe just got rattled hard, questions about how solid this world really is start feeling pretty urgent. Some folks laugh it off and call it mass imagination. Others quietly pray. But with so many separate cameras catching the same exact moment, it's tough to dismiss this as just a trick of the eye. When the sky, our symbol of steadiness and covering everything, suddenly breaks, the warning comes through loud and clear. If it was just a random thing, it still reminds us how small and fragile we are under that big sky. But if it's a sign the Almighty is shaking heaven and earth, then what's the next flash going to bring? A wake-up call to turn back? Or the start of a huge shift in history that no one can escape? 8. A strange glowing circle lights up the sky over Chile. A fiery circle suddenly hung in the sky over Chile. So bright it outshone the nearby stars and got TikTok buzzing in just a few hours. No smoke trail, no streaking path, just a perfect glowing ring high up near the Andes. Standing under it, you'd find it hard to believe this was just some normal thing in nature. That circle stayed right in place for several minutes. The outer edge glowed like hot red metal, while the center was softer but still sharp against the night sky. Cameras from different angles caught the same thing, a gateway hanging in mid-air, not spinning, not fading out quick, not switching off. People who saw it said they felt stunned and pulled in, like the sky was revealing some secret. Explanations popped up fast, everything from a lunar halo to an annular eclipse, but the astronomy calendar showed nothing matching that time, and the bright red color was way different from a regular moon ring. Some folks mentioned drones or flying devices, but the smooth, solid light and total stillness up there made that idea hard to buy. Ezekiel 1:15 says, "As I looked at those living creatures, I saw a wheel on the ground beside them, with 4 faces on each one." That old vision of a wheel suddenly feels real when you see this glowing circle in Chile's sky. A symbol once described as a vehicle of divine power now seems to show up again in brilliant light. Joel 2:30 says, "I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth." That promise about signs in the sky isn't just about one event. It's about a series of things meant to wake up people's spirits. When this floating circle appeared in our shaky times, it makes you feel like history is moving into a stage that was foretold long ago. Revelation 4:3 describes, "A rainbow resembling an emerald encircled the throne. The picture of light surrounding a glorious throne carries a majestic, otherworldly feel." That glowing ring in the night sky, with its fiery emerald-like edge, makes a lot of people think of a supreme throne rather than just some simple weather effect. The event didn't just start a social media trend. It stirred up a real hunger to find meaning behind what the eyes can see. While science is still weighing the possibilities, the Bible already offers a bigger framework that ties together symbols of light, wheels, and a glorious throne into one clear picture of power from above. The circle eventually faded away, but the questions still hang in many people's minds. Is it a sign that a door is opening, or just a reminder that divine kingship is drawing closer to us? When the sky lights up like that again, what might step out from the center of that circle? 9. Strange shadow in the storm. In the middle of a swirling storm in southern Brazil, a thick black shape suddenly rose up in the clouds. It stretched out, then pulled back in, almost like it was breathing. Lightning flashed across the sky, and in that bright moment, the dark shadow stood out so clearly that the person filming was shaking. You'd probably feel a chill down your spine too, seeing that movement. The dark cloud mass didn't just drift along with the wind like regular shelf clouds. It seemed to change shape on its own, twisting, then reaching out like a giant arm. Over a few seconds of constant thunder and lightning, it moved sideways through the low clouds, giving the feeling of something alive hiding in the storm. The video spread like wildfire and sparked heated arguments. Just a trick of the light or something beyond nature? Daily Mail and Newsflare compared it to roll clouds, those long rolling bands of cloud that show up before big thunderstorms. But this thing moved with a strange rhythm, not like normal swirling air. The sharp contrast between its deep black core and the surrounding clouds made it look like a separate figure, not just part of the weather. Joel 2:2 says, "A day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and thick darkness, like dawn spreading over the mountains." That picture of a dark day covering the hills isn't only about weather, it's also the scene of a sacred event. When Brazil's sky sank under thick black clouds and this weird shape appeared right in the storm's center, those Bible words ring out like a warning about our unstable times. Luke 21:25 says, "There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars." Heavenly signs don't always come as bright light. Sometimes they carry a dark shade that shakes people to the core. That black shadow moving through the lightning feels like a huge question mark hanging over all of us. Revelation 16:21 describes, "From heaven, huge hailstones fell, each weighing about a talent." People cursed God because of the hail. A storm with heavy hail and fierce lightning has always stood for judgment. When a mysterious shape rises up in the heart of the storm, it makes the picture of calamity and the charge against human sin feel more real than ever. The footage shows no signs of editing or special effects, and people there on the scene say they saw that strange cloud mass with their own eyes. This isn't just some curious weather event. It stirs up the feeling that the heavens are responding to what's happening down here on Earth. The storm eventually passed, but that dark shadow still haunts a lot of people's minds. Was it a warning sent through clouds and lightning, or just the opening act for even bigger events? The shape faded into the air, but where is it heading in the next chapter of history? And how will its message come through? 10. Strange cut, tear in the boundary between two worlds. A bright streak of fire ripped across the sky over southern New Mexico, and just a few seconds later, a jet appeared like it was chasing it. Would you call that a meteor? Or something they don't want us to fully understand? Right as the sun peeked up behind the desert mountains, with the sky still carrying a soft purple tint, that light burst out like a flaming sword. The glowing streak flew low along the horizon, moving smooth and so fast that in just a few seconds it covered many miles of sky before fading behind the dry, rocky ridges. The video shared on Facebook and Reddit shows smooth, continuous motion, not the jerky breaks you often see with regular meteor streaks. Revelation 8:10 says, "The third angel sounded his trumpet, and a great star, blazing like a torch, fell from the sky." That blazing like a torch image makes a lot of folks immediately think of this streak of fire. A falling star isn't just a physical event. It carries a message about a fierce time drawing near. What makes the clip even more shocking is the moment a jet comes in from the left side of the frame, banks, and heads straight toward where the streak just disappeared. If it was only a meteor, why would a fighter jet follow its path almost perfectly like that? The gap between the two closed fast, giving the feel of a real chase, not just random chance. Matthew 24-27 says, "For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man." The light flares up and vanishes in an instant between the horizons, reminding people of lightning flashing across the whole sky. A flash like that doesn't just light up the space, it wakes up people's hearts to what's coming. Some say it was just jet exhaust or a military test. But that streak was straight, smooth, and even all the way. No spreading smoke like normal aircraft contrails. Others call it a meteor, but meteors rarely get a fighter jet chasing right behind them so precisely, just seconds after showing up. Luke 21:11 records, "There will be great signs from heaven." Strange signs don't always come with clear explanations. Sometimes they flash for just a moment, long enough to plant a question in your heart that won't go away. That morning in the New Mexico desert became a stage for a sign that made many people take a fresh look at their faith. The streak of fire vanished behind the mountains, and the jet faded into the bright morning sky. But that image is still there, like a quiet reminder that the sky isn't as silent as we think. Could this be the great star falling from heaven warning of big changes ahead? Or is something being hidden behind that chase? And if it really is a warning, are you ready for what's coming? Here are 10 signs that have passed right before our eyes, like 10 loud bells ringing in the middle of the night. From glowing rings hanging in the sky, dark shapes twisting in storms, to streaks of fire cutting across a desert sunrise, every image shakes the heart. These are no longer scattered pieces. Are we living in the last days the Bible warned about? If one morning you look up and the sky doesn't feel peaceful anymore like it used to, what would you do? Early in 2026, a whole series of powerful events broke out all over the world, tearing through the night, shaking up social media, and spreading a deep sense of unease like an unstoppable underground wave. A bright green beam standing straight up in the sky, a giant face rising out of storm clouds, streaks of fire shooting down like they were aimed, glowing orbs hanging silently, the sky flickering as if reality itself is cracking, fiery rings floating in the air, dark shadows moving through thunderstorms, streaks of light being chased at dawn. All of it came one after another, covering the whole planet with images that make people stop and wonder about what's coming next. Is this just coincidence, or is it the clearest warning we've ever gotten? Is time moving faster than we think? If you feel the urgency in every one of these signs, leave a prayer in the comments as your way of standing up for your faith. And get ready to face each event as it comes, because what's waiting ahead is going to show you that humanity is closer to the final days than ever before. And now, so you don't have to wait any longer, let's get right into it. 1. A mysterious beam cuts across the sky. A tall green column of light stands straight up in the night sky, ripping through the darkness and sweeping down over every rooftop like a huge blade slicing the heavens. The whole city wakes up in seconds. Phones light up, car horns go off, social media blows up with hundreds of videos of the same scene. Right then, we realize the sky we thought we knew doesn't feel like ours anymore. It first appeared in Arizona, then moved to Texas, lighting up an area about 1 to 2 square miles, with no thunder, no lightning, no engine sound at all. The beam just hung there, eerily still, no flashing, no wobbling. What would happen if the end times had already started right in front of us? Early in 2026, a whole series of strange things showed up and spread fast. A figure like Jesus sitting by the seashore, a giant eye opening in the middle of a stormy night, winged creatures flying right past tall buildings, a winged woman standing in a snowy forest, a three-faced beast stepping out from a dark cave. Smoke and fire swirled into a winged shape in the sky. A dragon appeared in the clouds, a human figure hanging suspended above the clouds, seen through a telescope, a dark shadow hunting in the night, and a being with an eagle's head spreading its wings in front of a crowd. 10 things happened, one after another, and a lot of people started asking, what do these signs mean? What do you think about all this? If you believe we need to pray more at a time like this, please leave a prayer in the comments to share your faith. Amen. Now, so you don't have to wait long, let's get started right away with 1. The appearance of Jesus' holy figure by the sacred